Frank really was the first multimedia superstar. He was on film, he was on television in the early 50s, he was on radio, he was making records, he was having these mass sellout live appearances all over the country.
He would open his mouth to start singing, and this tidal noise would spring up, and all he could do was stand there moving his lips. They just wanted to see him.
He was the heartthrob. He was the Beatles of the 1940s, really.
They would sit in their seats. They would pee in their seats. They would not leave. They would tear his clothes off. They would scream. They would trample anyone to get to Frank. It was hysteria. And there was no one more successful than Frank Sinatra. And then, suddenly, it all went away.
It's very interesting to look at the beginnings of John F. Kennedy in electoral politics because in some ways he's not gifted. He's awkward, he's extremely skinny, he hasn't filled out his frame yet.
He was not a natural politician. He didn't have that instinct to dive into a crowd and shake hands, sort of embracing people and getting to know them. He was the kind of guy who would go to an event, stand in a corner, and his aides had to kind of like, come on, Jack, you've got to shake hands, right?
He's green, he needs practice. He is not terribly good at public speaking at first, but he works hard. He campaigns with his family. In fact, it's an entire family affair. The family's money gets behind it. His mother and his sisters get behind it. It's a really extraordinary operation to get him into Congress.
And that's when he starts to put together this Irish Mafia that's going to be so important for his later career, because the key people there are going to stick with him over the next 17 years.
Bobby Kennedy was a fantastic political organizer. He was really running the campaign. So he brought his friend Kenny O'Donnell along, who was a big organizer.
My dad was at Jack's side. He was his right-hand guy. He was his logistics guy and his kind of political antenna.
There's also going to be Dave Power. There's going to be Larry O'Brien. They were all Irish Catholics.
And, they were truly the brains behind what became this Kennedy political machine.
He blows away the competition in 1946 at a young age, and it's a sign that it isn't just luck or his father's money, that he is gifted in his own way also. And it's the perfect time for a young, charismatic candidate to emerge.
I am today announcing my candidacy for the presidency of the United States.
Kennedy offered a breath of fresh air, not through what he had to say, but the image that he portrayed.
He was young, he was handsome, he was smart, he was clever, and he was telegenic in a television age.
We stand today on the edge of a new frontier, the frontier of the 1960s, the frontier of unknown opportunities and perils, the frontier of unfilled hopes and unfilled threats. I'm asking each of you to be pioneers towards that new frontier.
This was what I think many Americans believed was the best of themselves. And I think in many ways, that's what Kennedy offered to Americans, a sense of what they could be.
John Kennedy is the first Catholic who is running for president in a serious way since Al Smith of New York in 1928. And Al Smith was defeated handily in 1928, in part because of his Catholic faith. The Ku Klux Klan would burn crosses outside of his campaign rallies. Newspapers predicted that the Pope would, for some reason, leave the Vatican and move to Washington. People believed this stuff. So that was the X factor in 1960. Was the American public ready for a Catholic president?
Frank Sinatra knew a lot of guys in the mob. Everybody who sang in clubs at that point knew the boys, the wise guys, because they controlled the clubs. Now, he liked hanging around with the boys because Frank Sinatra was fascinated by power, and these guys exuded power.
Willie Moretti had long been involved with his career, and when Sinatra went to him and said, I've got a major problem here with my boss, Tommy Dorsey, Moretti went down there, shoved a gun in his mouth, and made him sell his contract for $1.
Let him go or you're dead. Which is, it's back to it's an offer you can't refuse.
It was a business relationship. Sinatra was a commodity to these men who ran the nightclubs.
And so he summoned Frank across the country to Hyannisport, and they had a meeting, and he said to him, I want you to bring people on board. Frank's mission was to bring on board, particularly Sam Giancana, to enable him to swing every possible vote for Jack in places where there would be tight primary elections and then where there would be a tight general election.
The mob controlled the unions. The unions were big players in politics because they could get out huge blocks of voters. So if the mob controlled the union and the mob wanted somebody to win, they would put the word out to the union that we want your guys to vote for our guy.
So Sinatra went to Momo and said, the big man needs your help, and we will give you, we'll make sure that the hounds will be off your trail as soon as Jack enters the White House.
You've got people in Detroit, at least 15 who have police records. And it's not so shocking that you should be involved in taking the Greenleaf money.
Mr. Kennedy, it is shocking to even involve a man with that kind of blood-taint money. And I don't go for that, Mr. Kennedy. I don't go for that kind of action.
It was very dangerous times. You know, Bobby was right on the edge going after these guys. And one of the people that he went after was Sam Giancana. Giancana is a guy that if you give him the wrong look, you're dead. I mean, you're talking about a very scary guy. But Bobby wasn't scared.
Will you tell us anything about any of your operations, or you just giggle every time I ask you a question?
Decline to answer because I honestly believe my answer might tend to incriminate me.
I thought only little girls giggled with the Giancana.
What the mob wanted to get out of that was for the Kennedy administration, once it won, to go easy on mobsters.
There was a repeated, a modus operandi, if you will, of cash being exchanged to get the vote out, votes being cast, and then a slim or substantial victory.
He won West Virginia, where the issue of Kennedy's Catholicism had become a very big deal. And then they turned out the vote in Illinois as well. And he won by a wild margin in Chicago, a small margin statewide, which tells you something right there, that the machine had done its work in the city of Chicago.
Which leads into the greatest amount of conspiracy theory we've ever had. All the who killed Kennedy all starts then, because the mob have got very good reason to do it.
It's official. As of just a few moments ago, the President of the United States